Birmingham, Alabama, Tuesday Worlds group ride on Zwift. This week we're doing Worlds on the 2015 Worlds course. So it's pretty different than last week. We had a lot more climbing, and you can see I just said 1, 2, 3, go. And here we go. So we kick it off at exactly 10 miles to go. You can see we got 10 miles to go on the little counter above me to the right there. Now we're at 9.9, and we've been sprinting for this green banner every lap. So it's been a multiple lap effort, but it's around 30 miles total. So you can see Mitchell there in Mitchell sprinted for the banner, which we had been doing every lap, and then kind of sat up. I don't know if he maybe was so focused on that sprint that he didn't realize that was the beginning of the festivities, what at actual Tuesday Worlds would be the flag drop, the green light. But he's back up here, so he's all right. That was kind of a perfect way to kick it off. It just worked out that way. We didn't really plan to start right at that sprint, but it worked out. So I went hard right off the gun there to get it going. And it looks like we split it down to maybe 10 or 15 people here. So like this is the group, kind of float back to check up and see where we're at. We got a few strong people in here. So this week is interesting. I got no teammates. So, it's not normally super team tactics heavy, but we do try to ride smart just to get some practice, riding as a team at this ride. And my teammate Zach, who is normally the ride leader, normally the beacon, he's actually still the ride leader on this. We will pass him here in a minute. He snapped his chain racing on Zwift, and his knee hit his drops really hard. And so he's got like a swollen, weird knee that kind of hurt when he started pedaling. So he was the ride leader, so he couldn't just skip out. So what he did was log on, get in the pin, and then he's actually in the Discord in my ear right here. Actually, not anymore. I wasn't watching, but I already ripped the headphones out. I told them I got to put some music on. I can't do this. So right now, I think you see me looking down in the corner, messing with my music, I think. And I kind of know I did a race on this course on Zwift, not the real Richmond Worlds course. This is the 2015 Richmond Worlds course, though. Virtually rendered, but very accurately. I did a race on this course on Zwift week and a half, 2 weeks ago. So I actually did the same race a time and a half, basically, because the first time I tried to do it, I had a Bluetooth dropout and got dropped from the group, and then I got in with the second group on the road and had another Bluetooth dropout, and then I just rage quit at that point. That was it for me. I think I have since figured out my Bluetooth dropouts. Haven't totally figured out these frame rate issues. I thought I had it licked today, and I thought the frame rate was going to be a lot crispier on this video, but my computer started updating some things, and I couldn't get it to stop, and we just had to roll with it. But I do think the quality is getting better and better incrementally as I figure out these settings, both in the video software and in Zwift. But yeah, I kind of knew if I was going to mess with my music, this was the time to do it, because going out this direction is fairly flat. And I think everyone knows that there's a big climb coming up. This Richmond course is famous for 2 or 3 real leg breakers. There's the Libby Hill climb, which is cobbled, which even on Zwift, they have the rolling resistance algorithm set to where cobbles take even more than regular tarmac to move you. So it's even more important that you be on it on that climb. But there's that climb, that's Libby Hill. Then there's also there's another little punchy one that's probably only like a quarter of a mile maybe, but it's like 6 or 7% grade. And then there's a longer one after that. That's where Sagan famously launched his attack at 2015 Worlds for the win. And those come in pretty rapid succession. And we didn't plan it this way. Again, we just sort of set the distance and then, let the chips fall where they may. That's how these Zwift meetups work. You choose a route and then just choose the distance you want to do on the route, and it auto generates the finish line, which you will see at the end of this video. So we didn't really plan exactly where the finish was going to be, but I'm kind of doing the math in my head and realizing, 7 miles, the finish is probably on the other side of all 3 climbs. So right here, we're coming into, I know that this hairpin is pretty close to the base of the climb, and we're going pretty good here. I'm doing 350, 400. Yeah, we're rolling hard here. So I want to go ahead and just kind of slingshot myself into the base of this climb, because right here is where it kind of starts to go. We'll hit a 180, and that's where it gets steep. So I don't want to get stuck in anyone's kind of sticky draft as we're going up, and I want to have some momentum rolling in. So yeah, I hit 470 there on this little 2% section, just to get clear and get rolling, get some momentum. Yeah, and you can see I pretty much just put it down right here. This is actually the second fastest I've done this climb, including all of the times I did it in those Zwift races. The only time that was faster, I was chasing a dude who is on Israel Cycling Academy, the pro team that I guess Katusha, and there were like 2 teams that merged. I think they absorbed most of the Katusha riders from last year. But yeah, so like Alex yeah, the time trialist. He's on that team. One of his teammates, their world tour though, was in this race with me. We hit this climb and just absolutely ripped the climb. And I was hanging on for dear life. And we're going down the other side, and I'm taking stock of the group, because Zwift race, it was probably like 40 or 50 people when we started, and we were down to maybe 5. And was taking stock and noticed the Israeli Cycling Academy jersey, and I was like, is that real, or is that a guy in a fan kit? And looked it up afterward. That was the guy from Israel Cycling Academy. So it makes sense that my fastest time up this was following him. But what you just saw was my fastest time up that, aside from following a World Tour rider. So now this downhill, it doesn't really behoove us to rip the downhill. We've got a pretty good gap. You can see on the right there, it's kind of listing. Everyone's coming through the banner, so it's scrolling their achievements or whatever. But once it stops doing that, it'll show the time gap to them, and I think it's pretty significant. Yeah, 20 something seconds. So also me just being a lighter rider, I'm not trying to really push it right here. It looks like it's the 2 of us, and this guy Mitchell. I was forewarned. A local guy, I think he actually lives out in like Trussville, Alabama, but comes to the group rides and stuff. Clay Sanchez, I think this is one of his buddies that he wanted to show our ride to. And here we go into the next steep climb. So we don't quite hit this one with the same ferocity that we hit that first one, but we also don't sit up. Yeah, I wanted to kick it up before these cobblestones, because again, it kind of just sucks your momentum if you come in with no speed. I've had that happen on this climb before, which it sounds crazy to talk about all this stuff, but the fact that it's on Zwift and I'm talking about rolling in with momentum and things, but the physics are fairly realistic, and if you know how they work and you kind of get a feel for it, they're maybe even a little bit more punitive in some ways. Like if you stop pedaling entirely in the real world, you don't slow down quite as fast as you do when you stop pedaling entirely on Zwift. Also, if you come out the back of a group in the real world, a big group, I think you're getting a little bit of draft much longer than you do on Zwift. On Zwift, when the little shut down the gap emblem comes down at the top, once you're off the back of that, you're really, really, really getting penalized more so than I think you might in the real world. So yeah, we're kind of sitting up here and just chilling on these downhills. We hit both of those climbs pretty hard, so I also don't have a heart rate monitor on here. My heart rate monitor has, I think, just given up on me. I don't know. I changed the bad one. If you watched my crit win video, you saw me messing with it. I think it's just given up on me. I'm not totally sure. I guess I need an Amp Plus dongle so I can use the good one, the Garmin one. Um, yeah, so trying to. I guess I wanted to make sure here that once we got onto the flat, this dude wasn't gonna just like fully attack me before I took a drink of water. But yeah, it looks like we're just kind of sitting up. So I start watching the gap here, and I'm noticing that I believe that's Andrew Thomas is behind us, and he's starting to shut it down. Like he's getting 10 seconds, 9 seconds, 8 seconds. He is really, really shutting that gap down. So I go back to the front here on this little 2% and get back into sort of a low sweet spot zone, just so that he can't just roll right into the back of us. If he's, I'm not going to kill myself 5 miles out from the finish just to keep someone from getting on. But yeah, he is a bigger dude than I am, and I probably don't want to sprint with him. So, these are the Zwift tactics. But it turns out right here, we're going to rip this climb. Again, another climb, another huge effort. And I'm kind of testing. So this In Mitchell guy is he's from Arizona, and I think one of his buddies, I don't know how they know each other or whatever, but was just like, hey, come do our group ride, Tuesday Worlds is a legendary group ride. So we've also got Emily Gass, you can see down there, who's 3 or 4 behind me. She's a super strong rider from New Orleans. She's come up here and won the annual hill climb race thing we do called the Baker's Dozen, where we do 13 of the steepest climbs in Birmingham, short, steep climbs, and you're scored on each climb. It's kind of like the Dirty Dozen ride. It's kind of our version of that. But yeah, so we got Emily Gass from New Orleans. Same situation where she was just like, I always heard about this group ride, want to do it, and this is the chance now that it's on Zwift. So Mitchell is still with me. I put in a big effort there. I'm still putting it in. We're almost on the flat. Like this is not officially the top of the KOM, but it's 1% here versus the 6 or 7 that was we were on earlier. And this is on the hill that we just sort of springboarded off of. This is where Sagan made his winning move. So yeah, there's Zach Rader. His message just popped up. So he's been in the game this whole time. He's just not riding. He's on the side of this circuit, and every time we get onto the sort of half of the circuit that his avatar is on, he can chat with us. And then he's listening in the Discord, which I've pulled out of my ear the same way riders do when they're unhappy with the advice from the team car. But it wasn't that for me. I just was I didn't want to be messing with headphones and stuff. Once you put in a hard effort like that, it's a lot easier to get fed up with little annoyances like headphone cable flopping around and stuff like that. So we got a pretty good gap now, and it looks like Andrew Thomas is kind of stuck in no man's land there. He's got a group breathing down his neck there with Emily Gass and I can't see who that is, but Team Kronos, somebody. It looks like they got a couple together. They're rolling pretty good. But so our gap is pretty solid at this point. We're within 4 miles of the finish. I think we're both kind of thinking about the sprint. We must both be. I'm certainly not a sprinter. I don't consider myself a sprinter. I'm a pretty punchy rider, but not necessarily a sprinter. I'm not going to beat anyone in a heads up sprint. I just have a lot of small accelerations. I can accelerate a bunch of times and I can accelerate very quickly, but my raw watts are not that crazy. So in a drag race, I normally do not come out on top. And I'm assuming that Mitchell must be thinking the same thing here, and that's why we have really, really backed off. Neither of us really has the impetus to just pull the other one around. There's not really a reason when our gap is this big. So from here to the end, there's not much testing. We're kind of just marking each other and just making sure nobody's going to get away. But you can already see that time kind of starting to come down. Andrew Thomas is back there, and he's eating into the gap a little bit, little by little. Yeah, so when it gets super slow, I'm going to go to the front like this, and I'm not going to put down an insane effort, but I'm just going to make sure that we're not going like a leisurely pace. Yeah, I'm doing 2A 300 here. I'm making sure it stays pretty quick, especially on this little 2% uphill, because I know if I'm going fast on this, 2% is not a ton. It's not like a climb where we're going to have to do the exact same watts to stay together, but I'm not just giving him a free ride the way I would be if I was really putting it down on a downhill. And that does seem to motivate him to roll through, and let's keep moving, keep it fast, keep going. This is a situation that often happens on the real Tuesday Night Worlds ride, not with this exact cast of characters, but it's similarly punchy close to the end, and the few hills where we get big attacks, and then I wouldn't say big lulls, but just a sort of nobody wants to pull that last little bit into the base, and that's sort of the base of the climb. Tuesday Worlds finishes on a climb. It's I'm not sure exactly how many, probably 2 or 3 minute climb, probably averages like 5% if I had to guess off the top of my head, but it's a solid enough climb that nobody wants to waste any matches coming into the base of it. But it does sort of give bigger guys a chance to get back up there if we don't just sort of keep on top of it. So right here, I'm kind of realizing that that gap is coming down. We've been passing other riders, which this is an annoying thing on group rides on Zwift. I got to say, the group rides on Zwift are a great feature. It's been a lifesaver to have in this pandemic lockdown situation. It's been great to be able to get on here and hammer with the group, keep the morale high among the Birmingham cycling group. But I will say an annoying feature is the on the Zwifters nearby tab on the right, everyone who's part of our meetup is green, which is good. But you can see we're passing these people from other meetups just out here on the road. And so then I can't see as many people, from our group when there are these randoms in the middle. So yeah, that the one that I need to see has just dropped off that list, and you can see I'm putting in a pretty good effort here because I realized that he was getting kind of close, and it wasn't the same. It wasn't Andrew. It was someone else. It was the Team Kronos guy had overtaken him and was just like hunting us down, and I'm not totally sure who that is. And I'm also realizing that this sprint is probably going to be flat, if not downhill. If it's still this kind of cobblestone stuff, that's terrible for me because almost everyone on this ride is bigger than I am and probably has more raw watts than I do. Raw watts meaning not watts per kilogram, but just that little number in the blue up there on the left. And when you're fighting rolling resistance, the raw watts matter a lot more. that's one of those things that can kind of tip that equation the same way that a hill tips the equation in my favor more towards watts per kilogram. These cobblestones, any of these things that affect the rolling resistance, like the dirt roads on Zwift, that's gonna play into the hands of someone who has more raw watts. And I'm thinking probably that guy who's back there, who's been hunting us down. So we did pull a little bit more time back out on him uh, when I noticed him, and then I put in that big effort. We did put a little bit more time into him there, but he was definitely not giving up. I think he got within 20 seconds or something, which cut down from over a minute is pretty good. He was cooking. So you just got to keep an eye on that, and the function where we're seeing people who are not a part of our meetup is not helping with that. On a more crowded course, which most of them have been more crowded, that's been super annoying. We did this ride on a Central Park loop a few weeks ago, and man, it was really annoying. It was really hard to keep the group together and hard to understand who we were riding with and who were just random people out there. Yeah, I guess one thing we could do is like all put the same jersey on or something, but I don't know. That's a lot of trouble to go to. We did that for the team time trial, and we'll probably do that again for the team time trial. But to ask a group of 40 people on Zwift, another thing is like people are not paying super good attention to the chat or any of the surrounding stuff. It's kind of all splintered. Like we've got some of us who are on a Discord chat, and some people who are chatting in the chat box on Zwift, and then some people who are just riding, which to me, if you're going to come on this ride and not talk, it seems that's a weird choice. I mean, I would rather you be here than not be here, but it's like, why do the virtual ride with everybody? To me, that's the real benefit of doing some of this stuff on Zwift is, I can talk to everybody and get a little bit of that feel of like a normal ride. So it looks like we're getting pretty close here to the end. Can see that there's the total time, and then there's the number of drops I have under that. The blue bar is almost full, and that's the blue bar up there in the top middle is the total distance of the course, and then you can see how much we got left out to the right of the bar, which that's something that took me a long time to figure out, and I really had to start zeroing in on it. I've realized that one of my teammates just gave me a ride on. Hopefully he's watching. So Lawrence Monks, who I accidentally said was from Tuscaloosa in my team time trial video. I know that he's not from Tuscaloosa. He's from Auburn. Those are just the two towns that have a college football team and really strong cyclists in Alabama. You got like Davis Adams and Bern Grimel. Those guys are from Tuscaloosa. Michael Lambert was a longtime rival of mine who lived in Tuscaloosa. He's in like Wisconsin now or something, but man, he's been putting in huge miles during the lockdown. But Lawrence is from Auburn. I should know that because I stayed at his house for one of the only races that's going to happen this year, the Auburn Road Race and Criterium that happened earlier this year, which was super fun race. Really a much stronger field than what it should have been. We had one guy who won a Vuelta stage in 2016 was there with Novo Nordisk. It was just one of those things where it lined up. So we're getting real close to the sprint. What I've realized in these Zwift sprints is I need to watch that blue number, and when it hits 0.2 is kind of my sweet spot. But it looks like this guy's starting to put it down. I see a red number, and I'm just like, okay, I'm on it. I'm hitting it. And so that was a little early for me, but somehow sprinting, I turn translucent when I sprint. I'm not sure if that's a function of the watts or I look like an insane skeleton. I don't know what's going on there. And I just nip him at the line. Absolutely. That's so when I said earlier that it penalizes you if you stop pedaling, that is really, really true in a sprint. Zwift, there are no brakes on Zwift, but if you stop pedaling, it really slows you down. And I think he maybe went a little earlier than I did, and thus he blew up. You could see I gave up maybe a few feet from the line. I think he probably stopped pedaling 3 or 4 seconds before I did, and that's why my avatar just flew past his right there at the very absolute last second. So that's actually a lesson for me. I should have just kept pedaling for those last 3 pedal strokes or whatever. It is based on 3 second power, so the averaging, whatever you were doing 3 seconds ago with whatever you're doing right now. So if what you're doing right now is 0, that goes down a lot more than if what you're doing right now is even 100 or whatever. So if you've already put in that huge effort, it's best to just keep it rolling. But yeah, that's Tuesday Worlds for another week. Like and subscribe. Maybe I'll do some more racing this week. Got a few videos up since last week. Check it out on the channel later.